Hello everyone. So, I just had a spoonful of honey. Hopefully my voice can stay with me for this video, because it is a pretty important topic, and it's one that I actually have a fair amount to talk about, and that is trades. So when I talk about, or when I mean, what I mean by trades here, it's not Uber exchanges, which can be referred to as trades as well. It's nothing like that. It is literally when one player kills another player while dying themselves, trading out. And I want to talk about when they're good, when they're bad, and stuff like that. So, I did think about it a little bit in advance, because the short answer is it depends, right? Even for what are normally very clear-cut cases, such as a soldier trading for a medic. In the case of, for example, a last hold, where that medic just used Uber pushing in and they now have no Uber, that soldier might be a little more valuable stopping the point rather than just trading with the medic. So even for the clear-cut cases of like one class for another, it's not always so simple. So I decided to break it down into some criteria. The first one is classes. Overall, a soldier trading with another class is, on paper, at the worst, pretty neutral, right? And it can get very, very positive for the soldier that's trading if they're trading for a demo or the aforementioned medic. Another one is game state. So, as I referred to earlier, that soldier for medic trade, not so important in a game state where that medic doesn't have Uber and there's players actively pushing it at last, maybe trying to cap the point, stuff like that. So game state does matter a lot, as you might expect. Excuse me. And then the third one, which is a little funny, is who should win the fight, right? So even though a soldier demo trade is generally advantageous for the soldier, if that soldier has a free bomb and let's say the demo is like 50 HP and they're able to sticky pipe the soldier midair and just hit the air shot and kill them instantly, but the soldier just gets one rocket off and cleans up the demo, that soldier's going to feel pretty bad about that trade, even though it technically favors them, just because obviously the demo did a lot more legwork and probably got away with something by securing a trade rather than just dying. Usually when it comes to this factor, excuse me, it does boil down to the fact that a trade is preferable to just dying. And obviously you'd want to avoid and are going to try to play to avoid just dying, but it's not always going to be that simple, and being able to find something is better than nothing. So, with those criteria down, let's talk classes. So Soldier and Scout are generally more disposable, by and large, because you have two of them. So if you need a Scout to play with your medic and deny soldier bombs and do important Scout things, well, it doesn't necessarily matter if that's your pocket or your flying scout. It just matters that it's a scout. So usually this is a pocket scout's job, but if your pocket scout can trade out with a demo, for instance, that's very positive, because you're not really missing out on the utility of a scout, because your other scout can just rotate to do the pocket scout things that you need them to do, and the other team's down a demo, which they don't have a replacement for, right? Now, of course, a scout for a scout trade is going to be generally pretty neutral, as you might expect. But that's where, game state starts to play in. So Scout and Soldier are generally the classes that benefit from trading. In particular, like Soldier is a class that trades a lot because, Soldier's main means of cleaning up players is by bombing them. And when you bomb them, you're oftentimes getting very aggressive, rocket jumping forward. And that puts you in a lot of danger. So you're oftentimes going to be dying. On top of the fact that a lot of soldier bombs are just straight up one-way missions, be that sacks or anything to that effect. So yeah, those classes are generally okay with trading, because it tends to be, just from a strict class perspective, it tends to be neutral, if not advantageous if you're getting that demo or that medic pick. That being said, as a demo, trades aren't terrible. If you are able to trade out for a medic, that can be quite nice. Now, of course, you inherently have to be more careful trading as a demo because, of course, you provide a lot of utility to your team. You provide a lot of defensive value, maybe like utmost defensive value, and a lot of offensive value as well, being able to spam players out of positions, help your team take space, while also being able to lock down space for your team. Demo is just extremely useful. So you really have to justify trading as a demo. So usually you really only benefit from a trade as a demo if it is on a medic, right? Trading for the other demo is overall kind of neutral. Obviously on the face of it, when you aren't factoring in game state and stuff like that. So if you can get a medic trade as a demo, it's not terrible. I mean, add for your team is wonderful, but yeah. There, of course, are other factors at play for all these classes, which we'll get into now, that being the game state. Because there are a lot of game states in which factor these decisions. One such example, so I already mentioned how demo overall is a more valuable class than a scout or a soldier, and you'd rather avoid trading with those classes if you can afford to. Well, in the case of a Koth 4-man, which is a strategy in which you sack 4 players trying to force the other team's Uber. This is usually a disad strategy. So if you don't have Uber, your alternative is to build this Uber, which takes a long time. So during that time that you're building, you might as well just sack your players. So you get to kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You are still going to build that Uber that you kind of had to anyway, because you can't reasonably fight the point on Koth while it's disad. But you have that added advantage of maybe being able to kill the medic, maybe being able to get some type of value, right? And in a 4-man, some of the value you can get is in trades, because the team with control of point have much longer spawns. So if you're 4-manning, and let's say, we bomb on the 4-man, right? You're the demo, and the other medic gets forced really, really quickly to your soldier bomb before you can even land, right? Okay, that's great. You're going to die anyway. And in fact, you should die anyway, because the last thing you do want is a really delayed spawn, because the sooner you die, the sooner you get to refight with your ad, because the sooner you spawn as a result. So what are you going to do? Well, you're just going to try and trade with someone or get as many kills as you can. And if you were able to trade with a scout in a 4-man situation where you get the force, that's wonderful for you, because that's 1 fewer player that they have when you're refighting. It's absolutely great to get a trade in that situation, even though it is a demo for scout trades. You can see how the game state, of course, influences it. Likewise, in a sacking situation, excuse me, overall, a soldier for scout trade is going to be pretty neutral. But if that soldier's sacking in, going on a one-way mission, trying to get that force, if they end up getting a kill on a scout, for instance, then that arguably benefits the sacker, because it's even numbers. The other team can't really counter sack like they could if it was, if they had the player advantage. And as a result, maybe even the team that initially sacked can sack again, because it's still even numbers. So that trade definitely benefits the soldier, even though, on paper, just based off the classes, it seems kind of neutral. That being said, as a soldier, you should be sacking for a force. You shouldn't be sacking to try and get a trade. But, sometimes mid-bomb, you realize there is 0% chance that this is going to work. So I may as well try and get something better. And a trade can be something better. It can bail you out of an otherwise not horrible, but not, still slightly disadvantaged situation of being down that player, forced to play a counter sack, giving the other team an opportunity to try and force your med, right? So another example of game state. Excuse me. And then another example, just anything pertaining to Ubers. Of course, when a medic is closer to having Uber or having Uber, they're a much more valuable target than a medic without an Uber. So if, for instance, Actually, I think that's a better example for the last case. But if it's add for one team and disadd for the other, and both medics die, that trade actually kind of favors the team for whom it was disadd, right? Assuming all other players are alive, all other things kind of considered equal there. Because, you know, they had add and suddenly now they don't. So, again, just the state of Ubers and the state of the game in all sorts of different situations influence whether a trade is advantageous for one player or another, while also factoring in those classes. You can't forget that. And then the third thing is who should win the fight, right? This is a big thing because, and actually a joke I like to make, if I, if I'm playing with a friend or something and then I kill them in a way that I probably should have died, like the argument is over who traded with who. It's like, no, I traded with you. Like, you should have killed me, but I traded. And this happens a lot. I mean, soldier trades are just such a common thing to happen. When you're clearing flank or something, oh, there's a soldier close and now I'm committed. One of us are going to die. And as long as both of us kind of hit all of our rockets somewhat reasonably, we're both going to die. So trades happen a lot in those cases. But in some cases, one soldier just absolutely has the upper hand, whether it be in health, in positioning, in getting the drop on the other, any number of things factoring in. But if the soldier at the disadvantage or in the disadvantaged position, hits everything really well, then they can secure a trade. And in some cases, if you absolutely diff a player, then this will just be a straight up kill. But a classic example I can think of is on Sunshine, actually. I think it was in Invite Playoffs some season ago. Kobe 1920 on 20 HP or something, getting bombed by Marmalou. Extremely weak. This should just be a free cleanup. He's going to die. Is able to hit maybe a double air shot or something, uses the escape plan actually to dodge rockets, and secures a trade, right? So, despite the fact that on paper, this, is just a soldier for soldier trade, and as far as game state goes, trading a soldier for a soldier here doesn't really benefit one team or the other, but the chat absolutely popped off, and everyone understood that what Kobe did there was just insane. Because he should have just died instantly, but instead just put up such an insane fight and was able to effectively just outplay so hard that he got a trade out of thin air. So in a case like that, where someone is just absolutely expected to lose a fight and gets a trade, it's extremely wonderful. Another example that I was going to bring up earlier, but I said was better for this section, was in the case of, a medic is absolutely dead to rights. They should just be dying. They're caught. They're not getting out. They're 100% dead, and it's just a matter of how soon they die. In some cases like that, you'll see the medic just with the Hail Mary cross-map crossbow kill the other team's medic, who was maybe a little weak from, the earlier fight or something. And in a case like that, yeah, it's just a trade, but it's absolutely a trade that the medic that should have been dead, well, still dies, of course, but the medic that should have died while getting nothing is now just a god, because they're somehow able to get that trade that shouldn't have ever happened. So as you can see, all sorts of different criteria factor into whether a trade is kind of good or not. The big one that is probably the most nebulous is, game state, because you do have to ask is this class we're giving up in this kind of situation worth it for, the value we get out, in a case of, maybe we really needed a soldier for that next fight versus they didn't really need that scout, or something like that, is a little harder to discern, and that just kind of takes some experience and, etc. And then also for who should win the fight, that's very much, it's a lot of opinion, honestly. Because it just feels good to outplay the other team, even though it just materializes in a trade that, in some cases on paper seems very neutral. But, that is, players trying to win, clash of egos and whatnot. You definitely want to, relish in those opportunities where you maybe get more value than you, quote unquote, should have. But anyway, trades are an interesting case. They happen a lot. I love to watch just the classic soldier trade on the flank. It's funny every time. But hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you next time.